WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Ahead in the next 5 minutes, live local news for the First Coast from the WJCT News team.
The worst is, unfortunately, yet to come. I'm Melissa Ross, and just ahead this hour on First Coast Connect, why doctors in Greater Jacksonville say they're now tracking the Gamma variant of COVID, what you need to know. Then later,
the race cards are a deck of cards that contain questions related to race and race relations. The cards are intended to be a tool to help facilitate dialogue.
90 Forward's Race Card Project is now an app. We'll tell you how you can learn more. Plus, new information on getting a COVID test in our area. It's all ahead. After the day's news.
Live from NPR News, I'm Giles Snyder. With the new school year approaching, doctors are warning that a growing number of kids are getting sick with COVID-19. Hundreds of cases have been reported in the Atlanta area, where the school year has already begun. And in New Orleans, Dr. Mark Klein at the Children's Hospital says a record number of kids are being hospitalized, many of them too young to receive the vaccine.
We need adults to step up if they're not going to get the vaccine to protect their own health. They should do it for their families and for these young children who are the most vulnerable among us.
A fourth wave of infections is being driven by the Delta variant, but Klein says it's not yet clear if Delta is more dangerous to children. A top aide for New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has abruptly resigned. Melissa DeRosa issued a statement last night. NPR's Brian Mann reports pressure on Cuomo to step aside continues to grow following release of an investigation finding he sexually harassed women on his staff.
Melissa DeRosa was one of Andrew Cuomo's most visible and most influential aides. A report by the state attorney general alleges she played a leading role retaliating against one of the women who spoke publicly about Cuomo's sexual behavior. In a statement, DeRosa didn't address that charge. She said it had been her greatest honor to work for New York State. Her departure comes as political support for Cuomo continues to unravel. The state AG's investigation, released last week, detailed sexual improprieties by the Democratic governor against 11 women, allegations Cuomo has denied. Members of the State Assembly's Judiciary Committee meet today to move forward with an impeachment probe. Brian Mann, NPR News, New York.
The United Nations out this morning with a strongly worded report on climate change. The report says heat waves, droughts, and torrential rains will only become more frequent and extreme as the Earth warms. The report, written by the world's top climate scientists, comes as wildfires rage in western states. In Greece, they forced thousands from their homes over the past week. The Rwandan military says its soldiers last month helped the Mozambican army drive out Islamic State-affiliated insurgents who had overrun an important port town. Ishmael Fandikwa reports from Harare on the nearly 4-year fight against the insurgents.
The Islamic State-affiliated insurgents captured Mocimboa da Praia last August. In March, they took over Palma, another coastal town, but the army claims to have since pushed the insurgents out of the town. The Mozambican armed forces and foreign mercenaries have struggled to regain control of Cabo Delgado since the insurgents first struck in 2017. In addition to Rwanda, member countries of the Southern African Development Community, who agreed to send a regional force to Mozambique, have started sending troops to the country. For NPR News, I am Ishmael Fundikwa in Harare.
And you're listening to NPR.
Good morning, 4 minutes after 9. This is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. I'm Michelle Corum. The current surge in coronavirus cases is causing another economic impact, cancellations. As Abe Abaraya reports, they're racking up at the Orange County Convention Center.
The convention center had just started to get busy again, with events bringing in upwards of 300,000 visitors and $500 million in spending in June and July. But now, 4 events have been canceled at the Orange County Convention Center in the last week. Those conferences were expected to bring in more than 17,000 tourists and $43.8 million in spending. Orange County Convention Center Director Mark Tester says event organizers can require guests to wear masks, but the convention center cannot.
The governor has precluded us from making that a mandate, but our mayor has indicated that all county employees wear a mask.
The convention center still has 52 events booked for the rest of 2021, with an estimated economic impact of about $1 billion. I'm Abe Abaraya in Orlando.
Jacksonville Jaguars receiver DJ Chark has had surgery to repair a broken finger on his right hand. Coach Urban Meyer says the fourth-year pro is expected to be ready for the season opener on September 12th, when the Jags will face the Texans in Houston. And right now it's 80 degrees, partly cloudy here in Jacksonville, hot and humid for today and the rest of the week. We do have a small chance of a mid-afternoon storm, a high near 90.
Support for NPR comes from iDrive, providing cloud backup, full system backup, and on-site iDrive appliance to protect PCs, Macs, and servers from data loss due to crashes and ransomware at iDrive.com/NPR. And Americans for the Arts.
For Greater Jacksonville, the worst is yet to come. Good Monday morning. We're live from Studio 5. I'm Melissa Ross, and this is First Coast Connect. Thanks for listening. Hope you had a safe and happy weekend out there. Unfortunately, we begin the week with more bad news. In a moment, why doctors say the new Gamma variant of COVID is the next big surge they're expecting. Join us, 549-2937. Then later, important information. We have new updates for you on where you can get one of those highly coveted COVID tests in our area. First, though, some numbers for you. On Saturday, Florida reported new records for COVID cases. 23,903 new cases, and we are at an all-time high for hospitalizations in the state, nearly 14,000 people. The day before, the state reported 134,000 and change new cases over the 7-day period. This is the highest infection rate since the start of the pandemic. More than 19,000 new infections in this state every single day. New case positivity in Duval dropped just a little bit, and that is good news. But the state added 616 new deaths since the previous week's report. They also report vaccinations are on the increase. Finally, including here in Duval County, more than quadruple the pace across Duval with new vaccinations from just a month ago. That's a bit of a silver lining, as more people are finally taking this seriously and getting vaccinated. And we urge everybody listening to this to go get vaccinated today if you haven't already. Now, as if all this wasn't enough, doctors in Jacksonville say the worst is actually not with us yet. We haven't peaked. And they're keeping a close eye on the new Gamma variant of COVID. It's trailing right behind the contagious Delta variant. We're going to get very familiar with the Greek alphabet, folks. Dr. Chirag Patel is Assistant Chief Medical Officer at UF Health Jacksonville. He's on the line now. Dr. Patel, good morning. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
What are your questions about the latest on COVID in our area and in Florida and this new variant? Give us a call, folks. It's 549-2937. Join the show now. Emails to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. Tweets to @MelissaInJax. And our Facebook page is open. Dr. Patel, let me just thank you and your colleagues at UF Health Jacksonville for continuing to soldier on in this terrible situation. I know how hard it has been for healthcare workers and continues to be. What's going on at UF Health Jax? What are the latest numbers and what are you seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one thing that to keep in mind here is we've really focused a whole lot during this entire pandemic when it comes to hospital care on, are there beds available? Is there equipment available? Are there supplies available? And really enough hasn't been emphasized in terms of what about staff? are the people needed to provide you with the care going to be available? In a year and a half into this, what we're seeing is a very large stress on healthcare workers across the nation, not just here locally in Northeast Florida. At Jacksonville, UF Health, what we're seeing specifically are ever-increasing numbers of hospitalized patients with COVID who are coming in on average much, much more sicker, requiring more intensive level of care, as well as more oxygen support, ventilator support. And this is really taxing the system as a whole, as well as taxing the available providers. That's a finite resource. Eventually, that resource gets thinned amongst everybody who comes to the hospital, and that may lead to decreased access to care in a timely fashion like you're used to. It may at some point affect the quality of care. We are fortunate here at UF Health Jacksonville that we have been able to accommodate all patients that come to our hospital and seek our care without sacrificing any of our quality of care.
But that could change, and certainly we are hearing about elective surgeries being canceled and people waiting a long time in ERs for other needs because you're so caught up with COVID patients, doctor. And so school is starting tomorrow. There is a mask mandate of sorts for Duval County. At the same time, we are hearing that there is an increasing number of children in local hospitals. And we did see last week a 16-year-old die of COVID-19 in this city. Tell us about kids and COVID.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of the new tragedy, right? Is we've always believed at the beginning of this pandemic until more recently that the safest group when it came to COVID was children. They have the most resilient immune system of all humans, and we felt as though they were the most shielded. Unfortunately, now with the rise in variants, we are seeing higher case rates amongst children, keeping in mind that those under the age of 12 still don't have access to a vaccine. As of August 7th, we had 168 children hospitalized in the state of Florida. To put this into more perspective, since July 3rd, what we had was an average daily admission for pediatrics in a hospital of 6. As of August 7th, that number has risen to 49. So an 8-fold increase in just over a month of kids hospitalized in pediatric hospitals due to COVID.
Yeah.
It's frightening considering what you just mentioned. School is back in session. I think the key for parents and children in order to protect them is to take all of the precautions that we've all been preaching this entire pandemic. Really practicing great hand hygiene. Don't touch your face. If you're someone who has a child who will wear a mask and you agree to that, please place a mask on your child. Kids have a really hard time social distancing. I have two that are 5 and 7 years old, and they're going back to school. And I know when they see their friends, they're going to get in their face. They're going to give them hugs. They're going to talk. They're going to laugh. They're going to play in the playground and scream. And all of those things increase the risk for spreading respiratory droplets, which could carry COVID. And so that's the frightening part of all of this.
Of course. Now, doctor, to add to the misery, you're keeping a close eye on new variants of the virus. Currently, the Delta variant is ravaging Florida. It's highly contagious. We're hearing about a Lambda variant and then also a Gamma variant that will be the next waves. Tell us what we can expect.
Yeah, the thing to remember with viruses is they have one main instinct, and that is to survive. And the way they survive is by jumping from host to host, and we are their hosts. They also jump from host to host by evading our immune systems and the response that we have. And they do that by mutating and changing, and that inevitably leads to the rise in variants. When you can't stamp out a virus once and for all, it is going to change and survive. It is smart. That's why we're seeing variants. That's why now, a year and a half into this, we are faced with Delta, which is the most contagious and deadly of all of the various strains of COVID that we've seen thus far. We didn't really have a reason to talk much about variants because they weren't causing as much damage as the Delta variant is and wasn't spreading as fast. And here we are now. This is the harsh reality of a largely unvaccinated population, many of whom decline to wear masks and follow the recommendations from healthcare professionals. You mentioned Gamma and Lambda. Gamma, believe it or not, has been around for quite a while. It's not new. We've had it as early as January 2020. It just simply wasn't as contagious as Delta is. And what we've seen with Delta more recently is, due to how easy it is to transmit, it has run wildfire over the majority of the country. Many folks have seen the map that Mayo Clinic has put out, which shows transmissibility across the United States. You see that essentially the entire country, save for parts of the Midwest and the Northeast, are overrun with Delta right now.
Yeah.
Gamma and Lambda, I think what you're seeing are variants that are not as contagious. And so that's why Delta continues to be the predominant strain. I don't think we're going to stop with Gamma and Lambda. I think we'll need to continue to monitor through sequencing to see what changes are happening and if those changes in a virus cause a virus to become either more contagious, cause more severe illness, or, God forbid, evade the vaccine immunity or natural immunity that people will get.
And as you keep telling us, the more people refuse to get vaccinated, the greater the chance of that. People refusing vaccination are endangering not only themselves, but the community, because it will prolong this pandemic. Let me ask you, before we go to phone calls, Doctor, a physician at Mayo Clinic, Scott Silvers, posted this on Facebook over the weekend, expressing frustration with our inability in Jacksonville to get a daily update on local COVID statistics. That is because the state is no longer putting out daily information. And he writes, there is an unconscionable failure to report our statistics daily. It would allow local hospitals to better predict and react to resource needs. Most disturbing is the fact that our high local death rate, as the worst COVID hotspot in the state, is only being reported with numbers from the rest of the state. It dilutes and lessens how bad the situation looks in our community. This is a required reportable diagnosis in the state of Florida. Why is the state not releasing daily statistics? Is there any way that all of the major hospitals in Florida could form a consortium to go around the state and put this data out to the public and help us get a clearer picture?
That's a great point that you make. I'll start by saying, any information that local healthcare professionals and the community can get about this will help us combat all of that misinformation that's out there about COVID and how severe it is. I will speak very plainly here. This is likely the deadliest virus, due to how widespread it is, that we have encountered in our lifetimes. This is not something that's made up. We are not overemphasizing how severe this is. You hear the majority of healthcare professionals out there talking about how severe this is. And yes, extra statistics will help us make our case. Extra statistics will help us redeploy resources where they need to be. What I'll say is any additional information and support we can get from any of our local, state, or federal governments is welcome.
And not to cut you off, because I know our time with you is limited. Should the city council be doing more to help local hospitals? The governor will not declare a state of emergency. That would allow UF Health, Baptist, Mayo, et cetera, to draw down federal resources to shore up your battered healthcare worker staff. Should the city be acting on an emergency basis to provide more assistance to hospitals like UF Health, who are literally on the front lines of this crisis and are at the breaking point just about?
UF Health, and I'm sure I speak for the rest of the hospitals in the community, we would take any support we can get wherever it comes from.
Let's go to your emails and phone calls now for Dr. Chirag Patel, Assistant Chief Medical Officer, UF Health Jax. Lots of emails. I'll go to your calls in a moment, folks. It's 549-2937. But first, here's an email from Nancy. What would you tell the parents of a kid under 12 who can't get vaccinated, attending school in St. Johns County where they aren't even requiring masks? No vaccine clinics or testing. The school board is not even willing to put this issue on their agenda tomorrow morning. Dr. Patel.
this actually hits very close to home. I am a parent whose children go to St. John County schools who are under the age of 11. And so what you have just said there really resonates with me. I'll tell you what I'm doing for my children. I am not relying on anyone else to teach them what's right to protect themselves. I am spending the time ensuring my children understand why it's important to wear a mask, how to properly wear a mask, how to properly wash their hands and keep them sanitized, how to appropriately socially distance. I am taking it upon myself, knowing that I can't always rely on the support of others to make sure that my children are safe and protected. I am keeping an eye on when vaccines will be available for that age group. And when they are, I'll do my due diligence and I'll make an educated decision on whether my children will get it or not. So far, I see nothing to convince me that the day that it's available, that I won't be getting it. I will be lining them up the day it's available. Shot.
Yeah. Our 15-year-old is going back to school in Jacksonville tomorrow. She is fully vaccinated, which gives me a little peace of mind. Here's an email from a physician named Andrea. I'm fully vaccinated and I became symptomatic Tuesday with a home test. My workplace expects me back at work in 7 days. Is that accurate? Is that a decent amount of time for her to stay out of the workplace?
Yeah, guidelines that UF Health has been following indicate that if you test positive and you're symptomatic, we are saying 10 days of quarantine, and within those 10 days, the last 48 hours, you must be symptom-free to safely return to work. Every employer will follow their own guidelines for when they feel it's safe for individuals to come back to work. I have seen 7 days, especially for those who are fully vaccinated. For those who are unvaccinated, it's typically been 10 days. I haven't seen anything less than that.
549-2937. Joe in Riverside. Hi, Joe. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Thank you so much for taking my call. I am vaccinated, and I saw a study in British Medical Journal saying that vegans have 75% less severe risk effects of COVID. So anything else I can do plant-based foods-wise or to reduce my risk for Gamma and Delta new variants? Really appreciate the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. I'm sure a plant-based diet does provide some protection. And Dr. Patel, as you've been telling us, people just need to be vigilant, right? Mask up, hand wash, don't go into crowded indoor areas, socially distancing, all the stuff we've been doing all along.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not specifically related to a plant-based diet, but in general, for any of us who have lifestyle choices or potentially medical conditions that aren't optimally controlled, what you can do is try to live the healthiest lifestyle you can, balance nutrition, avoiding toxic substances into our body. If your chronic medical conditions are a little bit out of control or a lot out of control, work on getting those under control. That's going to equip your body's immune system with the perfect environment to fight off things that invade your body, like infections. When your immune system is busy dealing with other things, for example, those who smoke cigarettes and introducing nicotine and tobacco into their body, that's an added stress for your body and your immune system to deal with, which makes it less effective against fighting off a virus.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll take these personal precautions to optimize our health, which will inevitably help us fight off or avoid COVID.
Mike in St. John's. Hello, Mike. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning. So my question is, so if you've had COVID and you've gotten over it, okay, and you have the antibodies, right? So how should you take the vaccine, or are the antibodies going to work better than the vaccine?
Mm-hmm.
And if you've had COVID, how long do you have to wait to get vaccinated, or should you even get vaccinated?
Thank you, Mike. I'm so glad you asked. We get that question all the time. Dr. Patel, what should someone like Mike do?
Yeah, Mike, that's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. So there's this concept that you may have heard of called waning immunity. And that doesn't matter if you got the immunity through getting an infection or if you got it through your vaccine. The idea is the same. This thing that shouldn't be in your body gets in your body. your body creates this immune response, which consists of antibodies. And next time your body is exposed to that foreign thing, the antibodies remember it, kick into action much quicker, and get rid of it much, much faster than it normally would, which really helps a lot of people avoid symptoms. So your specific question, if I've had COVID before, typically how long does that natural immunity with those antibodies protect me? There's been various studies that have been done. Anywhere between 3 and 6 months is when you start seeing your immune response weaken, meaning that that memory is not as sharp as it used to be. It doesn't recognize it as well as it did before, and it takes a little bit longer to respond. And that's why we're encouraging those, even if you've had COVID before, to go ahead and get that vaccine, because essentially you're giving yourself a quote-unquote booster to that immune response so that memory improves. We are now at this point, if you are symptom-free from your COVID infection, as soon as 2 weeks after your infection, we are vaccinating individuals.
And on that same hand, fully vaccinated people who are healthy, they should get a booster shot perhaps when they become available. Do you recommend that too?
Yeah, so this is just spitballing at this point because there isn't enough available data to make a 100% statement. But I have been hypothesizing, really for the last several months that boosters are going to be required. And largely we see that with the rise in variants, that may become a necessity. I know Pfizer and Moderna had already come out and said we are investigating boosters, what that will be made up of, and what the dose will be. I know there's even conversations about come September, there will be applying for emergency use authorization for a booster. So I don't think it's a matter of if, I think it's just a matter of when we see boosters come around, namely because the concept of waning immunity as well as the rise in variants.
We're speaking with Dr. Chirag Patel, Assistant Chief Medical Officer, UF Health Jacksonville. Let's go to a few more of your calls. 549-2937. Susan in Mandarin. Hi, Susan. Good morning.
Yes, my question is, I'm over 65 and I'm overweight, but as far as I know, I don't have any other health conditions. So I want to know, originally we were told that our mask does very little to protect us. What the main goal was to get the person with COVID to wear the mask, but then I understand in November of 2020, they said our mask does protect us. But now there's the Delta variant. So how much should I limit my activity when I go into Publix and other places? People aren't wearing masks. What is my risk if I am vaccinated?
Mm-hmm.
So if I go into Publix with my mask on, is my risk fairly low?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked, Susan. I've wondered the same thing because I was just in the grocery store yesterday, Dr. Patel, and I masked up and the kids masked up. And, you look around when you go into stores just to kind of gauge who's wearing, how masked up is the group of people in the store. And it's kind of off and on. Not everyone's doing it as they were. So how much risk does she have?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I appreciate the fact that you are educating yourself on what I need to do to protect myself even further, knowing that I'm vaccinated. So when the CDC initially came out with their recommendations for relaxing the mask guidance, it wasn't with the Delta variant in mind. It was with the original strain and the fact that we know that when you're vaccinated, you're with either the Pfizer or Moderna or even Johnson & Johnson, you had pretty significant protection from contracting it as well as from getting symptomatic illness. With the rise in Delta, I think even more so than before, people, whether you're vaccinated or not, if you're going to be indoors, I am personally recommending everyone wear their mask simply because Delta is extremely transmissible. The question about does my mask actually protect me, the overwhelming majority of the evidence available states that yes, it is protective of both the person who could be exhaling the respiratory droplets to keep them contained, but also to the person who could be inhaling them to keep them from getting into your nose and your mouth. So the answer to the question is yes. I believe that when you go into an indoor space or even a crowded outdoor space, recently we had a concert with 35 to 45,000 people, you should be wearing a mask to protect yourself, whether you've been vaccinated or not.
You know, a week ago, there were 10 children at Wolfson Children's, 2 in the ICU. Today, there are 21 children at Wolfson's Children's Hospital, 6 in the ICU. Here's an email from Mary. She says, why can't we rush through a vaccine for kids under 12 if we can rush booster shots for adults? Dr. Patel, parents of young children are simply terrified about this. We hear from them every day. What about this?
Yeah, great point. Again, this is something I think about because of my own personal situation pretty regularly. And I think the thing to remember here is children, although have a very resilient body, they are still growing and developing. It is extremely important that when clinical trials are done and research is done, that age group, with how vulnerable it particularly is due to their development, is monitored. So they're being extra cautious with this age group, and that is why there hasn't been as big of a push and a rush. That doesn't mean that the manufacturers of these vaccines haven't been conducting clinical trials and haven't been studying if there's any side effects or adverse effects from it. It's just a matter of has this information been validated enough to be reportable? Because the last thing you want is for somebody to put information out there that is ultimately deemed inaccurate. Because we're talking about a condition that already has a high deal of mistrust from a lot of the public, and a vaccine that a lot of people feel like was rushed even though it wasn't, and that has science that hasn't been studied even though it was, some of which has been studied for over a decade.
Yeah. So what's your final message then? Now, earlier we touched on the crisis inside our hospital systems and how if people get sick with something else, they're not going to be guaranteed the best of care right now because our healthcare professionals are so overburdened treating COVID patients. So 2 things. If you haven't been vaccinated, get vaccinated, because if you refuse to get vaccinated, you're prolonging this misery for the public and for the hospitals. And then, doctor, what's your message to city officials? What could they be doing to help hospitals in our area right now? Because as it seems, you are out there all alone with no state of emergency declaration, no additional resources available, and your doctors and nurses and staff are simply almost at the breaking point of frustration with this. What can the city do to help you?
Yeah, elected official or unelected official, when it comes to healthcare, are all alike, right? We at some point are all going to need care, whether that's in a private office somewhere or in a hospital somewhere. I think everyone needs to keep in mind that at a certain point, we are going to hit the saturation threshold, and that access to care is not going to be there. When someone shows up to the emergency department with a heart attack, will they be able to get the care they need as quick as they need it? Everybody has seen footage from India, has seen footage from the beginning of this pandemic from New York, and how patients were lined up in gurneys in the hallway, how cars and ambulances were waiting in the parking lot to get into emergency departments. That could be the reality of this for us here in Northeast Florida if we do not get this under control. Everyone out there who is unvaccinated has a choice to make. I think the choice is clear. If we really want to stop this and try to get back to the way things used to be pre-pandemic, we need to get vaccinated. I am confident that within the next month we'll have a full FDA approval for this for at least one of these vaccines, and hopefully that will help people who are vaccine hesitant make the choice to become vaccinated. To anyone who is out there that has influence, I will speak for all of my healthcare worker colleagues across the city and the state. We could use all the help we could get. Jacksonville has become the case study for the United States for what happens when you have a large swath of unvaccinated individuals, despite access to some of the best healthcare in the country.
By all the help you can get, do you mean financial support so that you can hire more people? What would be the best help?
Yeah, I don't think there's one size fits all. I think every institution is going to have their own unique needs. What we've already seen from some of our elected officials is a lot of outreach asking us what they can help with, as opposed to just blanket mandates for every healthcare setting, because it's very unique. I would just simply say that if you're a healthcare organization out there, reach out to your elected officials and let them know specifically what you need, and press them to get the help that you need.
I want to thank you, Dr. Chirag Patel, for being with us. He's Assistant Chief Medical Officer, UF Health Jacksonville. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone. Be safe.
Much more still ahead. Later in the hour, there is other news to share. Our own Josh Torres will take a look at the upcoming kickoff to the Jaguars season. But up next.
The race cards are a deck of cards that contain questions related to race and race relations. The cards are intended to be a tool to help facilitate dialogue.
How 90 Forward's new app helps you start conversations about race, plus where you can get a COVID test this week. It's all ahead. Well, the local organization 90 Forward is out with a new app you can download. It's a digital version of their race cards. These are decks of cards that they've been giving out as a tool you can use to start a conversation about race. For more about the new app, I spoke with volunteer Erin College.
Erin, good to speak with you. Thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here today. Thank you, Melissa.
Let's begin by explaining what 90 Forward is and how you developed these race cards and what they do.
Absolutely. 90 Forward was founded in Jacksonville in 2015 with a goal of building a more inclusive Jacksonville and ultimately creating racial healing and equity through deep conversations that ultimately spurn collective action. And the race cards are a deck of cards that contain questions related to race and race relations. So really, the cards are intended to be a tool to help facilitate dialogue. You know, we know that these conversations can be hard and they can be emotional, and we found that the cards and the topics, as well as our facilitation guides, have helped people enter into this conversation, you know, with people they know, as well as people that they aren't connected to and come from different backgrounds. So we believe the dialogue is important. Ultimately, the action is and follow through is the most important, but we're hoping that the race cards is a tool to facilitate this dialogue really moves us forward.
Yeah. And what a brilliant tool to actually create a physical deck of cards people can deal out and hold in their hands. It's sort of a play on the saying, oh, you're playing the race card. And you're trying to do this in a positive way. So you've got these physical decks of cards, but now you have an app version of the race cards. Tell us about it.
We do. We actually launched this officially last week, and it's available for free in the App Store and Google Play Store. And ultimately, we want this tool to be as accessible as possible. We want it to be within anyone's reach. And while we still believe in the hard copy of the deck, and we will still be distributing and selling these, we wanted to make sure that, you know, if cost was a barrier or if access was a barrier, that we could eliminate that through making the app available within the App Store. And it really is inspired by the deck of the cards. Brunette Garcia developed the initial design for the race card tool, and the app is entirely inspired by the hard copy deck, and the cards and topics are consistent between the original deck and the app.
So this is a way anyone can engage with anyone in the world about these conversations. They can do it right through the app?
You know, absolutely. The cards are available within the app, and, you know, ultimately we think these conversations tend to be most constructive in person, but the app is also integrated with Facebook and Twitter. So to the extent that people want to continue the conversation on social platforms, or they want to share the app with people in different cities or throughout Jacksonville, we just hope that that the app facilitates a broader mechanism for sharing and reach and extending the conversation, you know, across Jacksonville and ultimately beyond.
And the app is just called Race Cards, is that right?
It is. Race Cards by 90 Forward.
By 90 Forward. And 90 Forward has facilitated hundreds of conversations throughout Florida when it comes to this topic. This is just a continuance of that mission, right?
Exactly. It's, we've hosted more than 100 conversations with more than 1,000 participants, but we hope that those conversations spark other conversations so that people carry forward the dialogue that they have in these facilitated groups to, friends, families, communities, and truly the app is an extension of this. Interchangeably, you can use the cards or the app to facilitate a really constructive conversation.
Is this an easier way to do it, too? Because often people get defensive or emotional when you talk about anything involving race, systemic racism, institutional racism. Those kinds of things can be very difficult for people of different backgrounds to talk about. So is it your hope that this is a way to make it a little easier?
Absolutely. Those challenges, the emotion, those things still exist, even through the facilitated conversations. But, we hope that by presenting topics in a way that where everybody has equal participation in the conversation and can hear people, and honestly, the most effective conversations are when you're talking with people who come from different perspectives and different backgrounds. Our hope is that the dialogue becomes productive rather than, anyone shutting down. So ultimately, we do hope and we continue to improve the race cards as we get feedback on the topics that are most effective. We just hope to continue making it a tool that help these conversations move forward more effectively.
It's the Race Cards, a question card game from Jacksonville's own 9-0 Forward. 40 questions sparking authentic discussion about race and diversity, not only in Jacksonville, but now the world, because this deck is now digital. Download the Race Cards app from 9-0 Forward and check them out online too at 90forward.org. Volunteer Erin College, it's good to talk to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Melissa.
Well, Telescope Health is stepping up to meet the growing demand for COVID testing in our area. They've announced a COVID-19 rapid testing site in Neptune Beach. This is located at 540 Atlantic Boulevard in the former Kmart parking lot. Dr. Matthew Thompson is co-founder and COO of Telescope Health. He's also an emergency medical specialist at Baptist Health, where he's been treating COVID patients. Hi, Dr. Thompson.
Hi. Hi, Melissa. How are you?
Good to talk to you. And so you've seen firsthand in the ER why we need more testing, correct?
Yeah, this is it really is unprecedented, and sad to say, we're just seeing the devastating and life-threatening effects of COVID again. And in a shift, it's a regular occurrence now to see patients stacked in the hallways. Our health system has added field hospitals, has shut down outpatient elective procedures to accommodate more people. And so, when you wake up with a fever, you want to know if you have COVID or not, especially if you were with friends or family the night before. And people are willing to wait in the ER for extended amount of time to get that test. And so we definitely saw the need to offer that in a better way. We're still seeing people in the ER for other causes too. So anything we can do to reduce exposure to people who are there for broken arm or chest pain or something like that is a benefit.
Now, you've opened up in Neptune Beach, as I said, in the site of the former Kmart parking lot. This no appointment needed, and this is a drive-through site?
It is. That's correct. So we ask that people, we have an online registration. So you can go to telescopehealth.com and find that, and you can put in your name and basic information. And then, beyond that, you can come anytime. And right now we're open Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Why Neptune Beach?
So, we worked with TLM Realty before, which owns that plaza. We had set up in the old Planet Fitness location next to Kmart. And so that was a location that was very familiar to us. In addition to that, the city of Neptune Beach and Mayor Elaine Brown have been extremely helpful and collaborative with us. And just for the sake of speed and execution, we knew that was a place we could launch quickly and accommodate a good amount of people through a drive-through site.
Yeah, Mayor Brown, I believe, had a family member who battled COVID. Now, the rapid test at Telescope Health site costs $125. You can submit the bill to your insurance company. What about, though, for people who can't afford this, Dr. Thompson? That's a barrier. People are clamoring for a free or low-cost COVID test all over town.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. And we recognize completely that there are other places right now where people are lining up around, the block to get a free test through the Department of Health or through other partners. And we are hoping very much to work with the city to provide testing at no cost to the community. And we're actively working on that. For our ability to open up quickly, we had to launch in the way that we did now, but it is absolutely in our plans to hopefully provide that.
Now, are you planning any new testing sites beyond the one that's active in Neptune Beach?
Yeah, I think that depends on how we can move forward with the city of Jacksonville, and we would absolutely love to open up sites in other areas. We think mobile sites and that can be rapidly deployed for drive-through is probably the best way to move forward, and so we're actively looking this week and where else we could potentially open up additional sites.
We're speaking with Dr. Matthew Thompson of Telescope Health about their new rapid drive-through COVID testing site in Neptune Beach at the site of the former Kmart at 540 Atlantic Boulevard. It's open Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. So you also, as we mentioned, work at Baptist Health in emergency medicine. Earlier in the hour, we spoke with a doctor at UF Health. Tell us from your perspective about the level of crisis right now from what you're seeing inside Baptist Health's ER.
Yeah, like I said before, this really is something I have not seen before. The fact that the health system has had to go to extreme lengths to accommodate the number of patients that we're not only seeing but admitting, and when we see patients with COVID, we frequently try our best to send those patients home with the resources that they need to get better, and that may even include oxygen. To admit a patient means that they're so symptomatic, they're requiring high levels of oxygen that it's just simply not safe for them to go home. And that has required us to open multiple field hospitals to accommodate additional patients, to shut down outpatient elective surgeries. So this is something that is extremely serious. And again, the majority, overwhelming majority of these patients, high 90%, are unvaccinated. And so, and we're seeing a large number of patients who are young also who are requiring ventilator support, going to the ICU. So it is very serious.
What's your message to those who are still refusing to be vaccinated?
Well, I think that we see a lot of confirmation bias right now. We see people who are stuck in social media echo chambers where they're hearing that this is not serious, this is not severe, it doesn't affect me. And every day that I work, I see people who say, I wish I would have understood how serious this can affect me personally and can be dangerous. And so I would seek out the advice from actual experts. Go to your physician, listen to the resources out there that are the scientific and medical expert community. And they're all saying the same thing. There is overwhelming consensus right now, and that is get vaccinated and protect yourself, still wear a mask, and take this seriously.
Just the other day, we learned Duval County property appraiser Jerry Holland and his wife are being treated at Mayo Clinic. They were not vaccinated, and it was serious enough for them to require a week-long plus stay in the hospital. They both now say they regret not getting the vaccine, and they urge everyone to get vaccinated. So unfortunately for a lot of folks, Doctor, it's only when people get seriously ill that they realize that this is real. So if you need a COVID test, folks, check out Telescope Health, 540 Atlantic Boulevard, Neptune Beach, the former Kmart parking lot. A rapid drive-through testing site is active there right now. Dr. Matthew Thompson, co-founder and chief operating officer of Telescope Health. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate it.
And in a moment, are you ready for some football? The Jaguars' first preseason game is coming up this weekend.
The UF Health Cardiovascular Center, where physicians participate in national and international clinical trials to develop and refine many life-saving and life-enhancing solutions for heart and vascular conditions. Learn more at ufhealthjax.org.
St. Johns County Cultural Events Division presents Sing Out Loud Festival in St. Augustine, September 10th through 26th. Over 100 performances, including TLC, Parquet Courts, Yola, Patty Griffin, and Mayday Parade. Info at singoutloudfestival.com.
In 1923, the town of Rosewood was burned to the ground in a racially motivated attack. I'm Ben Brotmarkle, and coming up on Florida Frontiers, the weekly radio magazine of the Florida Historical Society, we'll talk with Rosewood descendant Lizzie Jenkins. We'll discuss the history of public health in Florida and the practice of redlining in Jacksonville. That's Florida Frontiers, Monday evening at 6:30 on WJCT News 89.9.
On the next Fresh Air, Cecily Strong. She's nominated for an Emmy for her work on Saturday Night Live. Now she's starring in a new series called Schmigadoon, a loving satire of classic Broadway musicals. Strong and Keegan-Michael Key play a couple who cross a bridge and find themselves trapped in a small town of an earlier era where life is a musical. Join us.
Today at noon on WJCT News 89.9.
President Biden wants to create an energy grid that's fossil fuel free by 2035. Lawmakers are pushing to pass a new policy that pays utilities to ramp up their use of clean energy and fines those who don't. It's called the Clean Electricity Standard. We speak to the senator leading the charge next time on 1A.
Today starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, are you ready for some football? The Jags' first preseason game takes place at TIAA Bank Field on Saturday, and they held a scrimmage there over the weekend, too. Our director and sports editor, Josh Torres, is rounding up all the sports news and notes on his radar. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Melissa.
Okay, so before we talk about the Jags, you want to make mention of the passing of Bobby Bowden.
Yes, everybody in the sports community wants to send condolences to the Bobby Bowden family. The legendary FSU coach unfortunately passed away yesterday morning after a battle with pancreatic cancer. About a month ago, his family came out and said that he was terminally ill, but everybody's just remembering he is one of the most legendary coaches in college football, second all time on the wins list, and we just all want to send condolences to his family.
Sure. Thanks for that. Okay, let's talk about NFL football. Training camp has started for the Jaguars. They had a scrimmage Sunday with, about 15,000 fans sort of distanced in the stands?
Sort of distance.
Sort of.
But yeah, the Jags have finally started training camp, and the one thing I think everybody's really excited for is Mr. Trevor Lawrence. He does seem to be as advertised. Now, there are times when he still does very, very much look like a rookie, but that can be expected. I mean, the college game and the pro game are two completely different monsters. But he definitely is looking very, very good. Travis Etienne looks like he's really going to be something. His speed is absolutely killing defense. And we're also looking at Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow, he definitely looks like a guy who has not played tight end at times, but there are times when he's using his quarterback mind to really show what he can do. And he's definitely, I would almost say, on the bubble, more so into possibly making the roster, or even as a practice squad member. But he's definitely in there. And then this Saturday, 7 p.m., the Jags are going to be taking on the Cleveland Browns in the first preseason game. And it's going to be the first time we're going to see Trevor Lawrence in action, and we're going to see the debut of Mr. Urban Meyer and see what the Jags are going to look like this season.
Yeah, so much star power around that. Let's make a quick plug of tailgate parking right here at WJCT across the street from the stadium. We have tailgaters who've been renting out space in our parking lot for years.
For years, yes, they have. And hey, if you come out, you might get to see me too. I will be, just so everybody knows, if you want an autograph, just feel free to come and ask me.
That's right. All right, let's talk about the incredible representation of Northeast Florida in the Summer Olympics in Tokyo. This is really cool, Josh.
Yep, with the 2020 Tokyo Olympics just wrapped up, and we have a lot of medals that are going to be coming back to Northeast Florida. We're going to start with the man, the myth, the legend, Caleb Dressel. He won 5 gold medals. He set a world record in the 100-meter fly and an Olympic record in the 50-meter freestyle. So he's going to be bringing home 5 gold medals with him to Green Cove Springs. We also want to give a shout out to Bulls grad Ryan Murphy, who's going to be bringing home 3 medals of his own, a gold medal, a silver, and a bronze medal.
The trifecta.
The trifecta. And then we also want to look at Mr. Eddie Alvarez, Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp infielder, became the 3rd American in history to win a medal in both the Summer and the Winter Olympics. For those of you who did not know, Eddie won a speed skating silver medal in the 2014 Sochi Olympics. And this year he won another medal. Unfortunately, it was not the gold, as the USA baseball team fell to Japan in the gold medal game 2-0. And then we also have Mandarin grad Michelle Motry, who will be coming home also with a silver medal after the U.S. softball team lost to Japan, also to Japan 2-0 in their gold medal game. And the last person we want to give a huge shout out to also is going to be Canadian Andre DeGrasse. He is from Canada. He was born in Ontario, but he calls Jacksonville his home. So we want to give him a shout out. He won a gold medal in the men's 200-meter sprint. I actually watched the race, and he took it at the last possible second, just barely won. But hey, it's still a gold medal, and he's bringing 2 more bronze medals home along with him.
Oh my gosh, that is an amazing list. And the medal I always think of Olympic swimmer Nancy Hogshead Makar of Jacksonville as, maybe one of the most well-known Olympic gold medalists in this community. But she's got a lot of company now.
She has got a lot of company, and we also want to give a quick little shout out to
And
Garrett
Shannon Miller. I'm sorry, go ahead.
We also want to give a shout out to Garrett Scantling. He's also from Jacksonville. He unfortunately didn't medal in he competed in the Olympic decathlon. He actually came in 4th, but we still want to give a huge shout out. He was just on the fringes of bringing home his own medal, but he's already looking forward to the next Olympic Games in 2024 as we head to Paris for the next Summer Olympics.
Oh my goodness. Josh Torres rounding up the sports news for us. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot, Melissa.
And thanks for driving this bus every day on the show. Josh Torres, our amazingly good show director, along with the uber-talented producer Heather Schatz, and a fantastic new addition to the team, Catherine Hobbs, our new associate producer. We're so glad to have her. Thanks also to editorial director Jessica Palumbo and digital editor Bill Bortsfield and the entire WJCT News team, along with all of you out there, those who listen, call, and tweet the show. Keep your feedback coming. Send an email to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. And you can catch our podcast up later today on all platforms, including the WJCT app. I'm Melissa Ross. This is First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. We'll be right back here again at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Keep your masks on and go get vaccinated.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.